Hello again, it's Jason Renault with the Alternative Mobile Services Association, and today we're speaking with Selina Evans of Benchmark. She's the Director of Crisis Services. Welcome, Selina. How are you doing?
Doing great, and thank you for having me on, Jason. Appreciate it. Appreciate the
Well,
opportunity
glad
to
to have
talk.
you. Glad to have your expertise and experience here. We're going to talk about mobile crisis and intellectual disorders. Um, but first, let's start by asking a little bit about you and how you got into this position. How did you come to be interested in doing mobile crisis and crisis services?
So I've been working with Benchmark in mobile crisis for about 12 years now. I started as a clinician on the mobile crisis team when we were on the mental health side. We also had a separate, at that time, IDD mobile crisis team. I was a regional director. And then most recently, a couple of months ago, I became the state director when our state director retired. And I'm the parent of a young adult who is on the autism spectrum, and so kind of familiar with some of the challenges that can arise. So I do have a heart for people who have autism spectrum disorders and intellectual developmental disabilities, and for their caregivers. And so it's really important for us to have services for them to manage crisis.
Well, that's great. You have professional and personal experience.
Yeah.
Makes you
And
deeply.
Benchmark has started with a large intellectual developmental disability services and residential across the country, and kind of branched out to the mental health and the crisis. So our company has a strong background in that IDD focused services.
Tell me a little bit more about Benchmark. What is the reach? What is the staffing and capacity? How big is this operation?
So we are across many states. I'm not exactly sure of the number right now, but in Georgia, the mobile crisis services, particularly in Georgia, we cover four of the six Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disability regions. So we do cover bulk of the state. There's two regions that are served by another provider, and we have mobile crisis teams throughout. We employ behavior specialists, licensed clinicians, registered behavior technicians, certified peer specialists, and paraprofessionals in our mobile crisis teams across the state. And then we do have a psychiatrist who is our medical director. And we have support from our RNs as well.
Tell me a little bit. Georgia's unique and it has a state center dispatch system. Tell me about how that works.
So in Georgia, anybody can call 988 for us. 988 is coming up on its fourth birthday, sorry, next month. So anyone in Georgia can call 988 and receive a response from a clinician or a care consultant who is experiencing handling crisis, and they will answer the phone, and they will dispatch to either of the providers based on the location of that call. And they reach that call out to us, and then our crisis teams will go out to the site. We will call the individual in crisis or the caller, whichever is appropriate, let them know how long it's going to be, start assessing the situation, and we'll have a team out there appropriate to the nature of the call. So if it's IDD call, we'll have registered behavior technicians, perhaps a board certified behavior analyst coming out to the scene to support the individuals in crisis.
So 988 receives the call, and then you call the person in crisis or the third party back
We
to
do.
collect some information of your own.
And also just to let them know who we are, that we're on the way, give them an estimate about how long it's going to take us. For our contract with the state of Georgia, we have a response time of 59 minutes. So generally, we've been really good about being able to maintain that and make that. But sometimes there are situations where we have multiple clinicians already out, so we always call and let them know exactly how long it's going to be, or generally about how long it's going to be till we can be out there, and we start de-escalating through that phone call and kind of assessing the needs.
And you have coverage through well, Georgia has coverage for the whole state.
Yes,
There-
anyone in Georgia, the whole state, 24/7, 365, we have mobile crisis coverage.
That's quite amazing. I mean, there's states that say this, but I've been talking to a lot of folks in Georgia over the past few months. I'm coming to believe it too.
No, we really do. We've been doing this for a while. Georgia had a jump start and a mobile crisis prior to the 988 go live that some of the other states have had to kind of catch up to. We had been providing a mobile crisis statewide services with one call center that dispatched to the whole state for a number of years prior to 988 going live. So we were kind of ahead of the game and able to have that system in place.
Now, Georgia has a unique feature, and Benchmark provides this of requiring or having mobile crisis available for people with intellectual disorders. This is quite different. Could you explain the background there?
So initially, the state of Georgia set up two separate contracts. One was a contract for mobile crisis individuals with developmental disabilities, and one was for mental health crises. And there was two separate teams. The same call center would dispatch, but there would need to be a decision about, is this primary mental health? Is this primary IDD? And what we found was that these cases are usually very complex, and a lot of individuals often had mental health component and an intellectual developmental disability component, and it's a little difficult to tease those out just on a phone call. So the decision was made to combine those into a blended model, and we bid on that contract and we started those services. And so what we did is we took the teams that we had, we rolled them into the mental health teams, and we also rolled out training for all of our mental health clinicians. And we were in a great place because Benchmark does have a strong history of being a company that serves individuals with developmental disabilities. So we had a lot of expertise, a lot of certified behavior analysts that were able to train. We had all of our clinicians and all of our certified peer specialists, all of our paraprofessionals take 40 hours of behavioral intervention training. They all take trauma-informed care training. And then we also have our mobile crisis teams have weekly meetings. So they will go over the case of the IDD. This is specifically just for IDD. So specifically, there's an IDD meeting every week that is run by the board certified behavior analyst. And we kind of go over any cases that we've had. There's a little bit of training about any particular topic related to crises. And then if there's individuals that we anticipate we may see again, we link those to the next clinician who's coming on call so that the team kind of has some continuity and we can know what to expect and how we can best serve those families.
Yeah, it does seem like a key to this is follow-up. You're able to provide that. How long can you do follow-up with the mobile crisis program?
So the mobile crisis program, our follow-up requirements on our contract, and this is the floor of our follow-ups, is going to be there's a 24-hour follow-up and there's a 72-hour follow-up. For us, with our IDD cases, they tend to be more complex. So we may have some more involved follow-up where the behavior analyst may make multiple trips out to the individual's home to coach families on some coping skills and some interventions that might be helpful. If there's minor environmental modifications that can be helpful for safety. And a lot of times we're doing a little case management. So that might look like linking individuals with the state to apply for waiver services if they don't have those services in place. So that is something that we will help connect them and help them get that process started before we close that case out. And so giving them that piece of just that extra support. And for us, when someone's in crisis, it's really difficult for that individual to engage the thinking part of the brain, right? You're shutting down, the amygdala gets engaged and it's noticed as a crisis, and then we're in fight or flight freeze mode. So that follow-up is really important because when we can engage the individual, we can engage the family when they're in a little more calm, they're in a place where they can kind of be receptive to maybe linking to some services, finding a plan. And so that is part of our follow-up when we keep people in the community.
Quite intense and quite special. Tell me, but open this up for our viewers. Why is it essential? I mean, how many people with intellectual developmental disorders do you see as a percentage of the total? And then why is it so important to include this?
So I will say it is a small percentage. We review, I'd say probably, I'm not going to give a number because I don't have it in front of me, but it is a relatively smaller percentage than of the mental health calls that we have. But the bulk of those also do have a comorbid mental health or co-occurring disorder. But these populations oftentimes they're not linked to the appropriate resources. The families don't have what they need. So a big part of what we can do is connect people. So we can come in and we can say, okay, what's going on? What resources do you have in place? Can we find you something that's going to prevent this individual from having a crisis again? What can we put in short term that will help for safety? And then longer term, how can we connect you to the appropriate providers? We do have, limited resources, and especially for higher acuity individuals, it is difficult to get behavior providers to serve some of these folks. So we really help to try to advocate, get them linked in, and get them linked up with the appropriate services. And luckily for us, Georgia has done a lot of work with continuity of care and the whole crisis continuum, because crisis intervention on its own is not going to fix any problem. It's temporary. It's very focused for short-term safety and connection to the next level of care. So Georgia has multiple options built into the system. We have the CSDC, the Crisis Services and Diagnostic Center, that's recently opened in Macon. It's been open, I think, about a year now. And that is where individuals with IDD can go who have comorbid psychiatric issues, and they can go and get longer term services than they could in a crisis stabilization unit. Now, the problem with individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities in a crisis unit is often they're not set up to serve those individuals. And there is a real difficulty in keeping them safe from some of the other individuals that may be having some higher risk mental health crises that can be very difficult. So it's a real blessing that Georgia has set that center up, and they have that. We also have a system of intensive crisis homes where individuals with developmental disabilities can go short term to have behavioral intervention, and Benchmark actually operates quite a few of those in Georgia. And there's also a pilot program right now with transition homes, which helps individuals in crisis and emergency rooms who maybe also have some medical issues, that they can go there, they can get stabilized and get back into a provider home or back to home with their families. So having those various options really gives us the ability as mobile crisis providers to have somewhere for someone to go, because mobile crisis is useless if somebody really is not safe in the home and we don't have an option. We do everything we can to keep them safe in the home, but if we cannot, we've got to have that last piece in that crisis continuum. And Georgia's done a really good job over the past few years of developing that and expanding that.
What would you say to the state that hasn't done such a good job, and there's plenty of them, uh, and they're looking at the IDDD issue, and what would you say is the first steps to bringing that on board?
I think the first step is really to look at your existing system. What do you have? Where are the holes? Where are the gaps? Where are people getting stuck in the system? For a lot of states, it's going to be those emergency rooms. Individuals have a high risk behavior, high acuity behavior. They're not safe. Maybe they're having some high aggression, self-harm, self-injury, injuries to families. They get stuck in the ER. And when we have individuals that will sit in an emergency room for a month, or they'll be, admitted to the hospital for behavior only with nowhere else to go because there's nowhere safe. So analyzing, where are those, how many do you have, and then taking a look at your system. What do you need? Do you need something like Georgia's done the pilot program with transition homes? Is crisis homes, short-term crisis behavioral stabilization and intervention? Is it, like the CSDC, somewhere they can get psychiatric care as well as the behavioral interventions? What does that continuum look like? What holes do you need to fill? And then what steps can you take to fill them? And what is working elsewhere that maybe could be replicated?
Selina Evans, thanks so much for talking to me. You're a great advocate, and I look forward to seeing you in Atlanta at CrisisCon this fall.
Look forward to seeing you in October.